During my career as an airline pilot, I had the opportunity to be a check and training captain. Part of this job was to train and test experienced pilots to ensure that they had the necessary knowledge and skills to safely and efficiently operate those magnificent big jets. I found that there were pilots who, even after many years of flying professionally, never lost the thrill of climbing into the atmosphere, having slipped into the surely bonds of earth and danced the skies on laughter-silvered wings. They loved the sound of rushing air, the growling of the powerful engines, the feeling of being one with the wind and one with the dark sky and the stars ahead. Their enthusiasm about flying was contagious. There were also a few who seemed to be merely going through the motions. They had mastered the systems and the handling of the jets, but somewhere along the way they had lost the joy of flying where never lark or even eagle flew. They had lost their sense of awe at a glowing sunrise, at the beauties of God's creations as they crossed oceans and continents. If they met the official requirements, I certified them. But at the same time, I felt sorry for them. You may want to ask yourself if you are merely going through the motions. This leads me back to my aerodynamic analogy from the beginning. I spoke of focusing on the basics. Christ-like attributes are the basics. They are the fundamental principles that will create the wind beneath our wings. As we develop Christ-like attributes in our own lives, step by step, they will bear us up as on eagle's wings. Our faith in Jesus Christ will provide power and a strong forward thrust. Our unwavering and active hope will provide a powerful upward lift. Both faith and hope will carry us across oceans of temptations, over mountains of afflictions, and bring us safely back to our eternal home and destination. Of this I testify in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. In 1979, a large passenger jet with 257 people on board left New Zealand for a sightseeing flight to Antarctica and back. Unknown to the pilots, however, someone had modified the flight coordinates by a mere 2 degrees. This error placed the aircraft 28 miles to the east of where the pilots assumed they were. As they approached Antarctica, the pilots descended to a lower altitude to give the passengers a better look at the landscape. Although both were experienced pilots, neither had made this particular flight before, and they had no way of knowing that the incorrect coordinates had placed them directly in the path of Mount Erebus, an active volcano that rises from the frozen landscape to a height of more than 12,000 feet. As the pilots flew onward, the white of the snow and ice covering the volcano blended with the white of the clouds above, making it appear as though they were flying over flat ground. By the time the instruments sounded the warning that the ground was rising fast towards them, it was too late. The airplane crashed into the side of the volcano, killing everyone on board. It was a terrible tragedy brought on by a minor error, a matter of only a few degrees. Through years of serving the Lord in countless interviews, I have learned that the difference between happiness and misery in individuals, in marriages, and families often comes down to an error of only a few degrees. Let me share with you how I taught the same principle to young pilots. Suppose you were to take off from an airport at the equator, intending to circumnavigate the globe, but that your course was off by just 1 degree. By the time you returned to the same longitude, how far off course would you be? A few miles? 100 miles? The answer might surprise you. An error of only 1 degree would put you almost 500 miles off course, or 1 hour of flight for a jet. No one wants his life to end in tragedy. But all too often, like the pilots and passengers of the sightseeing flight, we set out on what we hope will be an exciting journey, only to realize, too late, that an error of a few degrees has set us on a course for a spiritual disaster. Small errors and minor drifts away from the doctrine of the gospel of Jesus Christ can bring sorrowful consequences into our lives. It is therefore of critical importance that we become self-disciplined enough to make early and decisive corrections to get back on the right track and not wait or hope that errors will somehow correct themselves. The longer we delay corrective action, the larger the needed changes become, and the longer it takes to get back on the correct course, even to the point where a disaster might be looming. These commandments and covenants of God are like navigational instructions from celestial heights and will lead us safely to our eternal destination.